We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday. I have a bit of a cold, so I'm not as spry as I normally am, but never fear. We've got a guest with us today who can pick up plenty of slack. Uh, we have Eric from Iowa, and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to come on again sometime." Yeah, fucking tonight because I don't feel good. That's perfect. That's perfect.
You,
So
well,
go
thanks
ahead,
for
Eric.
having me. That usually seems to be how it works out. Either you're traveling or you get in late or
Yeah.
something like that. You're like, hey, I could use some help. Okay, sure. Hell, the other week when you were traveling late, like 1 a.m. when you got it recorded, I was up. You could have messaged me. I would have
I
jumped
th-
in.
I thought about it. I thought about it. Then I just sat down and go, fuck it. I'm just going to go and see what happens. I'm going to shoot from the hip as I have occasion to do. And it turned out fine. So, um, when you do a podcast every day, not all of them are big time winners. There are going to be some that are better than others. And that particular show, uh, whenever I do a show by myself, I feel like I get bored with myself sometimes. So I'm sure plenty of other folks do. Um, I try to keep up with the people who make comments and stuff, and I wanted to bring something up before we get into it. And there's so much shit to talk about. Um, I was talking about Donald Trump and Colombia, and how Colombia said "fuck yourself," and then Donald Trump has a tantrum. In that particular video, I made the comment that Donald Trump had a tantrum akin to a 5-year-old girl finding out she's not really a Disney princess. It's a fucking joke, okay? It's not even a good joke. It's a joke.
It is a
And
joke.
so some woman comes into my comments and says, "I really like all the things you're saying, but I'm pretty upset you're marginalizing women." I go, "What?" She goes, "You said he was like a little girl. Why couldn't you say he's a little boy?" I'm going, "Oh, for fuck's sake." I said, "I have a granddaughter." That's the first thing that came to mind. Why are we discussing this? Did you not hear anything else I said? And she says, "Well, I just think, you know, women get beat up on enough, and I just don't think you're doing that." I go, "Have you not listened to me for 4 years? You're suggesting I'm trying to marginalize women?" And the thing that got me was because she's about 45, she goes, "Well, sometimes this is not a big deal. Sometimes my mom, who's 74, will say some things that are kind of inappropriate and I have to correct her." I go, "Bitch, you think you got to correct me? Everything that comes out of my mouth, I never take back because I think about it before I said it." And that whole comment about the little girl and the crying and the pouting, I didn't give it a second thought because it's a throwaway fucking line. It's a stupid joke. Just lighten the fuck up. And she says, "Well, I just think," I go, "You know what? I'm going to save you the trouble. I'm going to block you from here on out because I don't want to argue about this stupid shit."
Yeah, sometimes that's the best way to go. Um, and I think, I don't remember what I said about it, but I probably would have made a comment just like it, or, you know, something like a
Yeah,
toddler finding out they can't win board games all the time or something. That's how he is. He's a little toddler. He's a little kid who's not getting his way. And in fact, he threw this temper tantrum about Colombia, and he actually lost in the deal. He didn't win
he did.
this.
He said he did. He stepped
Oh,
up and
yeah.
he goes, "Well, I won again." He bent a knee, and that's not at all what happened.
No, because what Colombia said was, we'll take our people back. That's not a problem. Treat them like people. You
Right.
know, don't have them shackled at the hands and feet. Give them water, make sure you feed them, treat them like people, and we'll take them fine. And don't send them on a military aircraft. Well, now they're making arrangements not to send them on military aircraft, and they're not being shackled. Donald Trump didn't win that, but he can play
Well,
it like a win because they're still taking the deportees.
yeah, the thing about it is the reason why this President Petro from Colombia said that is because there was a plane that landed in Brazil, and as you suggested, when they opened the thing, opened the compartment, these people were shackled at their hands, shackled at their feet. They were in a compartment that was air conditioned. It was hot. They weren't given water. They weren't able to get up and go to the bathroom. There were people fainting. I mean, this is absolutely despicable treatment of human beings. And we know based on Donald Trump's track record, he doesn't treat other people very well. Um, the losing part of this is he was exposed for the cruel shit he's doing. And that's the thing that people should be trying to address. But I don't hear anybody in Washington suggesting that Donald Trump and his administration are committing crimes by treating human beings in an inhuman way.
Well, Republicans aren't going to address that. A lot of them that they are okay with all of this because the cruelty is the point. Um,
Yeah.
and these are only going to go on for so long because the money's going to run out. Um, these flights are costing some. I read somewhere like each military flight that they're using is like $800,000, and they're not even deporting that many people overall.
80
It's
people.
getting it's what?
There are 80 people on each flight for
Yeah,
$800,000.
right. The money's going to rack up before long. They're going to need to go to Congress. Congress is going to say, yeah, no more money for that. But I did a TikTok on it. I think I just posted it actually right before we recorded. Donald Trump told all the agencies involved to make sure they're wearing their full gear, raid gear, all of it, so that they can be easily identified by the media. So they will
Yeah.
draw media attention. He's getting what he wants. He wants the clips from the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of this. And then they have the footage they're going to use for the rest of their term to show how strong they are on immigration.
The trouble with that is though, that's probably going to work against him too. The more egregious, the more aggressive it looks, it's going to reflect badly on him and his administration. But he's so stupid, he thinks it'll just make him look tough. Treating people inhumanely will make him look tough. That's how dumb that motherfucker is.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly how dumb he is because he thinks at about a sixth grade level. And that's probably being generous. Um, he thinks being the tough guy, being the bully, I can treat you bad, and you can't, oh, you're in handcuffs because the government has you, detained. And some of these are for minor offenses. Um, we're going to toss you out of the country, do whatever. We look tough doing this. And the rest of the
Yeah.
world's looking at you going, what the fuck? You know, it's only a matter of time till the pushback starts, not only, internationally, but within his own party.
Absolutely. You were talking about how expensive it is. And what people maybe don't understand is that Donald Trump has pulled away 5 to 10,000 people from ATF, Homeland Security, and the FBI. So all these people that were maybe dealing with uh, gun crimes, explosives, terrorists, drugs, all those people that would normally be working on those things have been put into this deportation thing. Now, here's the interesting thing. Donald Trump said that he was going to deport 18 million people. He's been doing these deportations for a week. You know what the total number of people he deported this past week is?
Couple thousand.
1,000. 1,000 people. Now, I was thinking about that. You're going to do 18 million people, but you do 1,000 a week. That's going to take a little while. And Old Soul and her now famous Wild Child were listening to that. And the Wild Child has some math skills because I was wondering how long would it take them to get 18 million at 1,000 a week. And Kelsey said she just watched your video. She did the math. If Trump deported 1,000 immigrants a week, it will take 17,142.9 weeks or 329 years to deport 18 million. Uh, this is, and it's costing millions of dollars every day to do this. This isn't sustainable. The money's
No.
going to have to come from somewhere, presumably Congress, and they ain't going to give it to them.
Well, yeah, it's not sustainable. No, they're either going to have to ramp it up significantly to get the numbers they want, or they're going to just back it off, use the clips they already have and the stuff that's already been circulated. Well, yeah, we're really tough on immigration. Look at what we've already done, type thing. Because they're not going to have the funds for it. It's with everything else. He says we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but the money's not going to be there, especially when they want to talk about government efficiency, and Republicans want to skirt the bipartisan nature of doing funding and using reconciliation, which means all they can do is move money from one account to another, basically. They can't increase the amount of money that is being spent. So if the total government budget is $1 trillion, and they want to move money from if they want more money for deportations, that money would have to come from somewhere, or they're going to need Democrats to agree to it, and Democrats won't. So
No.
they're not going to get the money they want.
Well, the interesting thing is that Donald Trump sees this situation. He sees it's not working. What would be the normal reaction if you were doing something that wasn't working? Maybe pull back, figure it out, and then go at it in another way. That would be a normal, logical way to deal with something that isn't working properly. But you were telling me just before we came on, that's not the case with Donald Trump. This isn't working real well. So let's just ramp this motherfucker up. Let's do it bigger. Why don't you tell us what you were telling me? This is fucking unbelievable to me.
Well, I was just reading this article right before we came on here, and I don't know all of the details, I will admit, but apparently he said something to the Republican representatives at a retreat thing they're doing at Mar-a-Lago, because they're trying to get their house in order because they're so fractured right now they can barely pass anything. Um, that he thinks that they should take any of the citizens who have committed crimes now and get them the hell out of here and put them in exile. That has never been a thing we've used as a punishment, but he thinks we should get permission to exile people that are
Citizens,
repeat
people
offenders.
born here,
Yes.
repeat. Well, where are you going to send them? And you can't do that. There's a little thing we call the Constitution. I know he wipes his ass with it, but you can't do that. But here's the thing. If you want to deport people who are citizens that have committed crimes, I know somebody with 34 convictions who should get his ass sent out of this country. Donald motherfucking Trump. I mean, this is how silly he is. He's absolutely ignorant. You know, I get tired of people acting like he's some mastermind or some genius and he's got a plan to everything. He just says shit. He pulls shit out of his ass and just says it and then acts as if it's real and it's important and it's legit. And then some dumb fucks say, yeah, we like what Donnie said. It's just, it's fucking crazy. And at some point, this has got to crash because you can't keep doing this, pulling shit out of your ass and saying things.
Well, in his first term, he was pulling shit out of his ass and saying shit, but he also wasn't doing a lot that
Right.
affected the economy. He was kind of coasting. Even his tax cuts didn't really change the economy. He was coasting on Obama's economy, which was pretty good until he fucked around with COVID and crashed the economy. This time, his stuff that he's doing right off the bat is starting to crash the economy. And Republicans are like, oh, like I think they're taking notice already. Um, I think was it the New York Times? It's one of the publications was saying they had an interview with an unnamed senator who has so far voted with Donald Trump on all of his Senate confirmation picks, and has said, yeah, he's not going to get them all through. There's going to be some people breaking on some of the ones that sound more like Tucker Carlson than an actual politician.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, the cracks are forming, and it's just going to be a matter of time, as we've talked about a lot, until Republicans are like, our reelection chances are on the line here. He's hurting us, and he could ruin us for a decade. He could ruin us for 2 decades, and
Well,
they pull the trigger,
yeah, a lot of people are
figuratively, of
worried
course.
about groceries going up because of tariff prices. Turns out they don't have to wait for that. because there's a lot of farms in California that have crops coming in. This is prime time for the fruit crops to be picked. And there's a lot of fruit pickers out there that ain't showing up because they are illegal immigrants and they're afraid they're going to be deported or put in jail or detention camps. So, right now in California, there's a lot of citrus out there that's still in the fields, is probably going to rot in the fields, which is going to raise the price of fruits coming up later this winter into the spring. Um, this is why we've said all along tariffs are one thing, but even the deportation threats are going to have a significant effect on our economy.
Oh yeah. I mean, and a lot of what they're picking is too fragile to be either picked by a machine,
Right.
or if they can pick it, the machines are too expensive. It's cost prohibitive to where if you're asking all of these farmers who have been relying on people to do the job, if they go out and get machines, if they could even do it, they're tens of millions of dollars in some cases. Well, if they got to, if they weren't planning to spend that kind of money, now your prices are going to go up right off the bat because they got to recoup that money. Um, Either way, prices go up. And if they hire, as everyone says, well, just hire Americans, don't hire migrants. Well, I don't know what they get paid, but I guarantee you it's a lot less than what American citizens would want to get paid.
Yeah.
And American citizens would want insurance and pay time off and, vacation time and, steady hours and all of it. I guarantee you there's a lot of things that people don't think of, but it's always that way with these people. They think, oh, they're just taking jobs that like they're worried about the job down at the local Walmart that they see one immigrant might have. And that's what they're thinking of. They're not thinking about the stuff that they wouldn't do themselves.
Right. Right. Well, Donald Trump is kind of like Ziggy. You have to be older to remember this cartoon. Ziggy was this hapless guy that everything went wrong for. He always had a dark cloud hanging over his head. Even when things were kind of looking good, something went to shit. And that's how it is with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's having trouble with these deportations. He's having trouble with the prices and inflation. Things are going up. Um, it's funny. I always say, well, everything's going up, and people will say to me, well, he never said that he would drop prices immediately. I go, no, that's actually exactly what he said. 24 hours after being president, I'll bring the prices down. I'll end the Ukraine-Russia war. So yeah, he did say that. Well, nobody took him seriously. That nobody could do it. Here's my problem. You've got a candidate that you elected. You don't take him seriously when he says shit. And when he does say shit that's fucked up, you have to interpret it for me. I don't know about you. I like a candidate who says what he means what he says, and doesn't make shit up. That's just me, though.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you there. And they're constantly moving the goalposts. They're constantly trying to excuse away something or try to figure out a way to make their guy look good. It is the most bizarre thing I've seen in politics in a long time because I think deep down, well, that they probably know Donald Trump is the last shot for the Republicans for a while. That
And
they're
if he's
gonna,
the last
that,
shot, they're in trouble.
yeah, the to do the things that they want to do right now, that they want the deportations, they want the racist stuff, they want all of that stuff, and to go back to the 1950s, that they know he's their last chance to do any of that. And after he's gone, I don't know who the Republicans have that could win for a while, and the Democrats are going to get some come in, hopefully get some shit done, hopefully advance things the way they need to be advanced, as
Yeah,
long as they didn't learn the wrong lessons from this last election. And then it's going to be hard to convince people to vote Republican until they change their messaging.
absolutely. Well, you were talking about the economy. And had Donald Trump had half a fucking brain, he could have coasted on Biden's economy for a while. But he has to go in there and mix things up and cause problems. And then he's an unlucky motherfucker too, because the stock market has taken a hit yesterday because of how much AI has been buoying the stock market. There's all kinds of shit going on with that. And then China comes out. China comes out with an AI platform that is cheaper and easier and just as good, if not better, than all these multi-billion-dollar AI platforms that people have to spend money on to use. And now China comes out with this product and they say, fucking use it. It's open source, free of charge. That threw the stock market, especially the Nasdaq, into a fucking tizzy, and it makes people sit down and look at Open AI or Chat GPT and say, "Are you fucking with us? Because you want billions of dollars to build this, and these fucking clowns built something just as good for 6 million." This is I when I first heard about it, I go, "That's fucked up." And as time goes on, as the days go on, that is really a bad situation for billionaires in this country, and I'm kind of happy about it.
Yeah, I don't know all of the details. I heard a little bit about that this AI thing came out. Supposedly it was made really cheaply, but way better. And I don't know all the details, like I said, but the fact that it's killing the stock market is not a good sign for Donald Trump.
No,
On top of
or
it,
his buddy
Donald Trump,
billionaires.
oh yeah, but on top of it, on top of the AI thing ruining the stock market, then you got to add the fact that he wants to undo the CHIPS Act, which Joe Biden was set to make, you know, putting all these projects in place to build computer chips here and help grow the tech industry here. And Donald Trump wants to undo it because it wasn't his idea. And all he's doing is wrecking the economy one move after the other. It's going to hurt. I feel bad to people who have, a lot of money invested in these things because they were booming up until Donald Trump came into office. And they're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
doing great. This makes sense, but he's ruining stuff left and right. And we're going to see more of this. You're going to see more stuff coming out of China and other places. Um, I think now more than ever, that's going to make Donald Trump look bad.
it's
It's
absolutely going to
good.
make them look bad. And it makes you wonder why you're worried about TikTok when Deep Seek comes out and kicks their ass. Because Deep Seek is a more of a threat to this country and the economy than anything TikTok could do.
Well, yeah, that's just it. This country has no idea. Like the old people that wrote the TikTok ban law, they don't know fuck all about fuck all when it comes to
No,
technology. You
no, they
know,
don't.
they wanted a reason to be against TikTok. Under the Desk News was doing a video about the TikTok ban and got a little more in the weeds with it in the short video they did. And apparently, it says something in the actual law that ByteDance isn't allowed to own the source code to TikTok anymore. Beyond not just they have to sell the algorithm or the name or whatever, they can't even own the source code, and they're supposed to delete it all. Well, those codes take years to develop. Even if they sell off TikTok, if the new buyers can't get the original source code, they would have to develop something entirely new by the time they come up with it. TikTok will be worthless. Like these
Right.
people don't know fuck all about fuck all.
Did you hear that there was something on TikTok? I heard one creator talk about, and I don't remember who it was, but Facebook and Instagram and TikTok get caught kind of suppressing democratic talking. Well, let's put it this way: democratic hashtags. If they put hashtag Democrat, nothing would come up, and if you put Republican, everything came up. It looks like an intentional thing. Of course, they're saying, "Oh, there's glitches," but my biggest concern with TikTok, I've been on there for a long time. I have a big following on there. Um, but I'm feeling like TikTok's credibility and legitimacy is fading every day.
Yeah, a little bit. I heard that a little bit about that. Um, it hasn't affected my content because, like you, I don't use those hashtags.
No, I don't
Um,
either.
so I haven't noticed anything. I Part of me thinks some of it is having to do with a lot of people just being scared since TikTok went dark and came back, saying that there's an issue. But if they're saying it's Facebook and Instagram too, I could see it. Because they kicked you off of Facebook for no reason.
Right.
Um, I don't know. They're losing credibility if they don't come up with something quick. I I see what you're saying there. It's a tough situation. I know a lot of people are worried that TikTok got bought and we just don't know it yet. I know some people are saying that Meta bought it because of the thought bubbles now on your profile pic. But I saw that going back all the way to New Year's. Just people weren't noticing it. They're just noticing things now. There are some other glitches that people are talking about, like having to follow the same creators multiple times. But part of that is until Apple and Google put TikTok back in the App Store, we're not getting updates.
Right. Right.
So
Well, yeah.
we're getting it's glitching because we can't fix the glitches.
Well, as I listen to TikTok, I listen to other creators like Hawk and Legal Dad and Mr. Global, and they're all saying the same thing I've been saying. I'm more focused on YouTube now. Uh, I mean, I still do a lot of stuff on TikTok, but the TikTok stuff ends up on YouTube. YouTube just seems like a more friendly place for creators. You can still get banned and all that stuff, but it's not all this ridiculous nitpicking and fucking around and the creators fund violations as opposed to guideline violations. It's just confusing, and so I'm on YouTube quite a bit. If you can't find me on TikTok, because there's a lot of people who followed me on TikTok now can't find me for whatever reason, you can always find me on YouTube. You can find Eric on YouTube under Analytical Iowan. But what I've been kind of intrigued by as of late is this other app, Substack. Now, Abe Abe won't be silent. Abe Gurko. He's on Substack. He does a lot of writing. And when I first looked at Substack, I thought, oh, fuck, I can write, but I'm too lazy for that. I'd rather just talk about it. And then when I found out that I could put videos on there, I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a try. And I've been very surprised by how quickly things can take off on Substack. That's more of a that's more of a stripped down version of an app. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's kind of interesting. You can even do a live there. You can do a live with a guest too, apparently. I tried to do it with Will yesterday. It didn't work out. I'm not sure what the deal is. But I'm kind of intrigued by Substack. I've, relatively speaking, compared to TikTok, I have a much smaller following. But as long as there's an audience, I'm willing to talk. So it doesn't really matter about the size.
Yeah, I've been looking a little bit at Substack. Um, Not very familiar with it, overall. Um, it does seem like you said kind of a stripped down thing. It might be a good alternative. I know one of our mutual followers, Suave DeBoner, was saying that Mark Cuban's working on his version of a TikTok style app. Looking forward to seeing whatever that turns into. I think
Right.
ultimately there's going to be some kind of replacement for TikTok if they don't figure something out soon. Um, there will be a new app that takes over for TikTok. TikTok, can't talk. TikTok. One of
Right.
the one of the other apps will take over. They always do. I mean,
Absolutely.
MySpace was king for a year or two, and then it went away, got replaced by Facebook. They switch. They have their heyday. I mean, most of the younger people don't use Facebook anymore for anything. They're on Instagram and Snapchat or TikTok. It's they're you're gonna it's gonna be a migration thing. And as I remind everybody, I've been doing a daily countdown since Donald Trump signed the executive order granting an extension of the TikTok ban. Follow your favorite creators wherever you can find them.
Absolutely.
Don't stick to just TikTok in case it goes away again. Most of the places it doesn't cost you anything to follow anybody else over there, And you don't want to have to go remember what they're, especially if they don't have the same username in one place or another. I've seen that happen with a few people where it's not even close.
Right.
So it's just easier while you have access to them on TikTok. Follow their link tree, follow their links to get you to their account, so you're not accidentally following an imposter or whatever. But find them before it goes dark, because it might.
Uh, yeah, it could go dark. I know Donald Trump is talking about how they're working out a deal where Oracle will buy 50 or 60% of it. ByteDance will have a minority share in it. Donald Trump's talking like it's a foregone conclusion. Now, I've heard other people say, yeah, that's not going to happen. There was talk of it one time a year or two ago, and it was never going to happen because ByteDance doesn't want to sell. That's the thing that Donald Trump has to understand. He can't force every deal, and that's what he's going to try to do here. You can get the best offer in the world, the best companies in the world, but if ByteDance doesn't want to sell, you don't have a fucking deal.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have a deal if ByteDance isn't in. And like I was saying a bit ago, they have to give up almost everything. They got to give up the source code. They got to give up the algorithm per the law. So even if they come to some kind of a deal that Donald Trump agrees to and says, okay, I think this is a good enough deal that it'll save it. If ByteDance keeps control of the algorithm, if somebody sues over it, well, they're not following the letter of the law. They could say, yeah, courts could say, nope, not a thing. TikTok gets
Right.
to go away. They didn't follow the law. Hell, for all we know, Mark Zuckerberg could sue today to say, hey, the law says 90-day extension, not 75. What's this deal here? And it was implemented after TikTok was supposed to be banned. That's not in the law. TikTok needs to go away. And the courts might say, yeah, you didn't follow the law. It's possible. We don't know how this is going to play out.
I think the important thing people have to remember, the power here isn't in the app. It's the people that use the app. And as Eric said, the people who are talking like me and Eric and some of the other creators out there, we're not going to stop talking. We're going to find other platforms that we're going to be on, whether it be YouTube or Blue Sky or Substack or whatever you're on. People are going to be talking, and it's important that you do follow them around. Uh, I know with the Rational Boomer, my attitude about this always was is attract as big an audience as you can, because with more voices, you're a more powerful foe. And the more people of a same mindset and all talking at once, that has some impact, with popular opinion or just controlling the narration. And I'm pleased that that is kind of happening now. I knew that Donald Trump would become president and he would just fuck up every day. And that's pretty much what he's done. And I will say, creators and people out here have done a good job of bringing it to the surface and pointing it out. Donald Trump has done some amazingly dumb stuff already, and he was only a week in as president. So, what's ahead is going to be absolutely ridiculous because as he gets more failures under his belt, he's going to become a little more unhinged and he's going to be saying wild and goofy shit. And we need to expose him for that. We need to embarrass him. We need to embarrass the Republican Party. That's how we win this fight.
Oh, yeah, we definitely need to embarrass him and we need to call him out at every turn. Ultimately, I think Republicans are going to have no choice but to turn on Donald Trump. I mean, I thought Hegseth wasn't going to get through as Secretary of Defense, especially after you heard McConnell voted no. Um,
Right.
I really thought as McConnell went, a majority of the Senate Republicans would go. Um, but if Collins, Hegseth, and or no, Collins, McConnell, and Murkowski voted no on Hegseth, I guarantee you they're going to be no's on Gabbard and RFK and some of the other dumb fucks.
Well, I think,
So they just need
yeah,
one more.
I think people are getting to the point in the Republican Party. They bowed and scraped to Donald Trump. They had fear of Donald Trump in primaries and all that stuff. I think people are seeing how fucking goofy it's getting out there, and they've about had enough. I think they finally realized that this stink is going to be stuck to them once it's over, and Donald Trump is either dead or out of office or in jail or whatever the fuck he does. And I think people are getting sick of it. And it's kind of like what you and I talked about before. Once Donald Trump becomes president, he's not an asset; he's a liability, and it's a matter of what the Republicans are going to do with that liability.
Yeah, I mean, eventually they're going to probably be left with no choice, but to remove him. Whether it's
Yeah.
JD Vance saying, "Hey, you know what? I think he's slipping mentally. I think he's got some issues." 25th Amendment and start that process, or if the Republicans ultimately use the 14th Amendment as basis for an impeachment. Right after he did the pardons, and I can't find the article that talked about it, but I saw a bunch of creators on TikTok talking about how there was reporting going around saying that they had the votes in the Senate to remove him just based on the 14th Amendment from pardoning all the J6ers.
Right.
That it might be in their back pocket at this point. It's possible. If he gets too far unhinged, I mean, because they never said anything in the Constitution that impeachment must happen soon after you've committed the high crimes or treason, just
No.
that you can be. So in theory, they could wait until it's most beneficial to them to pull the trigger, or see if he does any worse stuff in between.
Well, and it's not like he's not like after pardoning all those people that he's not committing any more crimes. He fires 17 inspectors general out of hand, and the law says that he has to give 30-day notice and have a good reason for it, and he didn't. And this is a dangerous situation. A lot of people I've talked to thought when they heard the term inspectors general, they thought it was a military term. They thought it was military generals. And it's not. What an inspector general basically is kind of a middleman mediator, kind of an auditor between Congress and the departments to make sure there is no corruption or anything illegal going on. They're supposed to be bipartisan, they're supposed to be independent. And by pulling them out of there, presumably putting in friends of his, that just opens the door wide open for corruption to run amok. And I think that's what Donald Trump wants to accomplish.
Well, yeah, and these inspectors general, they're looking for fraud, abuse, ethics violations, corruption, um, and they actually are the epitome of government efficiency. That's part of what they're supposed to be doing, is making sure the money gets spent the way they're supposed to. But they go ahead, they fire these 17 people in the middle of the night by email,
Yeah.
uh, and not following the law. And they say, well, they're toothless. They protect the government more than they do the American people, and gave a whole bunch of lame reasons. But then it comes out, you find out that almost all the ones he fired were ones he put in during his term.
Right.
They've been
Right.
holdovers from his administration. So which is it? Were they good people because he only hires the best, or were they horrible picks the first time around? They shouldn't have been in there.
Yeah. And my point was that in order to be impeached, now the Democrats can't be the ones behind this impeachment. It's going to have to be the Republicans. And I know a lot of people think that might be crazy, but it's not that crazy. Um, Pardoning all those people, that's an impeachable offense. High crimes and misdemeanors by breaking the laws of those 17 inspector generals and firing them. That could be it. Maybe there's some humanitarian issues. Well, now that we know he's sending plane loads of people that are handcuffed and leg shackled and given no water or a chance to go to the bathroom. There's so many things. If they really wanted to impeach him, they could. And like you say, I think they may be putting it in their back pocket to the moment they feel compelled to do something like this. Now, I just wanted to bring up there was a little bit of good news. I don't know if you heard about this one. Donald Trump um, Donald Trump pardoned, of course, 1,600 J6ers, insurrectionists, put them out on the streets. They scattered to the winds. They went to their hometowns and home cities and such. These are, in some cases, violent criminals, but Donald Trump said, no, they were just peaceful protesters. Okay. Well, there's one guy. His name is Matt Huddle. He was a J6er. He was in jail and he got pardoned like days ago, a few days ago. Now, if I'm a insurrectionist and I got myself in trouble in the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and I've spent time in the jail, I might want to keep my nose clean a little bit. I might want to just take it easy. Well, Matt Huddle didn't take that suggestion. He was out tooling around in his car in Indiana. The car was full of a variety of weapons, and he was pulled over by the police. Now, of course, this Trumplafuck thinks he's bigger than the police and that he can do whatever he wants. There's an altercation, and the cops shoot and kill him. So, the positive news here is we got just an inch of justice. One of these J6ers is no longer with us. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know really what to say about this other than I hope he says hello to Ashley.
Yeah. And the weird thing about it is, I'm, you know, they're going to probably now be calling for police reform and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff because it was one of their own, the Republicans. If it was a liberal or a minority person or something like that, well, don't be a criminal. Don't be a criminal in possession of a weapon. Stop, don't resist.
Well, and the thing about it is that if you accept a pardon, you also have to admit you're guilty. So while he did get a pardon, this guy was a convicted felon. He admitted he was guilty and probably shouldn't be having one, let alone a cache of guns in his car.
Yeah. Now, that's just it. That's typical. A lot of them have gotten out. We're hearing about the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. They're out recruiting people again.
Yeah.
Um, and presumably, now that their leadership is out, probably around weaponry. So it's only a matter of time till they get caught again with
Yeah.
some kind of charges. Did you hear a number of them? A number of the ones that got pardoned are now suing or trying to sue for a class action lawsuit against the government for wrongful imprisonment.
Just because they got pardoned doesn't mean it was wrongful. They were convicted by a jury of
Right.
their peers. They aren't going to win that. They're going to fucking
No,
lose.
but they're going to try. They want to. They want billions. I don't remember what the number was. It was multiple billions of dollars for wrongful imprisonment because they believe the bullshit Donald Trump and some of the other Trumplafucks have been saying. Oh, that they were political prisoners and they were hostages. No, motherfuckers, you were criminals.
Absolutely criminals. They will lose that. I can't imagine any lawyer taking that on unless he wants some publicity. But there's no way they win. They were convicted felons. They accepted a pardon, and they ultimately confessed to the crimes they committed.
A
Uh,
lot of them
I
did,
don't.
yeah.
And if you want to say I was convicted improperly, how is that possible? You acknowledged when you took the pardon that you were convicted and that you're a felon. Yeah, this is typical Donald Trump stuff. Just say anything and hope to God somebody believes it, but nobody in the judicial system will buy into that bullshit.
No, they won't. It's going to go nowhere. I just thought it was funny when I read it that they're trying for a major class action lawsuit to get a bunch of money out of the deal, to
Yeah.
get because they believe for whatever reason that they were so improperly treated. No, you were treated just right for being a criminal.
Yeah, you were probably handled with kid gloves comparatively. You probably should have locked you in solitary confinement and fed you bread and water for a fucking while. So, Eric, did you hear that Pete Hegseth is trying to polish up his image a little bit? We know he was named Secretary of the Defense Department. He's unqualified. He is the first blackout drunk Secretary of Defense. He is the first sexual predator that has been named Secretary of Defense. Now, with all these things that Donald Trump has been making executive orders for, there was some talk that they would cancel in the Air Force teaching the history about the Tuskegee Airmen, the first black fighter squadron in World War II. And it's quite a story. There's been movies about it, books about it. And these were some amazing folks. And according to what Donald Trump was going to do, they were going to quit teaching that, which made absolutely no sense. Now, nobody likes Pete Hegseth, but Pete Hegseth came out yesterday and said, yeah, we're going to put the study of the Tuskegee Airmen back in. I don't know what he was thinking there. I'm afraid he's going to piss off Donald Trump, but he at least did one thing good. It's not going to affect how we protect this country, but at least he had enough common sense that this was a bad idea and he fixed it, or allegedly fixed it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's how long till they reverse it again or whatever. But who made the decision to take it down in the first place? That's
Yeah.
the other question. Why were we not teaching it? And granted, I realize it was for all of a week that was an issue. Probably wasn't really a big thing, but it's
No.
despicable that it was even discussed. It shouldn't have been a thing. There's a lot of things that this administration is doing that shouldn't be things that they're attempting. Um, yeah, Pete Hegseth, I don't think he makes it through Donald Trump's term as Secretary of Defense. I think he gets fired before uh, the end of Donald Trump's term, and we'll just have to see who he brings in after Hegseth because he's going to do something. There's going to be something where they need Hegseth. He's going to be drunk or something, you know.
Well, in Donald Trump's first term, he either had 4 or 5 different secretaries of defense. So he doesn't have a great history of holding on to these guys once he puts them in office. So the idea that Pete Hegseth will be there this time next year is probably slim to none.
Yeah, he fired I don't know how many people. Um, of course, who was it? Was it Mark Kelly at one point? Um, can't remember the rest of them now. But he fired like 4 or 5 of them. It was ridiculous. Every time he turned around, it was somebody else.
Yeah.
And he does that. He did that with a lot of his positions. He'd have one person, then he'd have somebody else, then he'd have somebody else. Um, but he only hires the best.
Yeah. What do you think's going on? I'm just looking at another headline here. I'm just going to add it to the other part I was going to talk about. What do you think's going on here with him putting a hold or a freeze on all foreign uh, foreign funding, foreign help financially? He's shutting it all down with the exception of Israel and Egypt. I think part of that reason is something else more with Gaza, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm just reading now the Trump administration directs widespread pause on federal loans and grants too. What do you? I have a feeling as to why I know this is happening, but I'm curious as to what you think. What he hopes to accomplish by doing this.
Well, I think now the way I understand it is that would be considered for like the any foreign relief money. He can only impound it for 45 days and then it still has to be spent. Or Congress has to say, okay, we're going to renegotiate. That's the way I understand it. But I think what he's going to do is he's going to try to either renegotiate it with Congress and come up with differing numbers, even if it's slight, and say, well, I paused it so we could get you more money. Or he's going to
Yeah,
pause it and then he's going to try to get some kind of something in return for this aid. And then he can look like he was doing something and he was the master deal maker. Kind of like what he tried to do with Ukraine and Zelensky trying to get dirt on Joe Biden. Well, we will only send you the aid if you start the investigation into Joe Biden. you know, that kind of stuff.
And I think you make a good point here. He wants to look like the hero, but he is a transactional guy. We know this. He's pulling all the money back. He's going to give it back to them, but he's going to have to get something. He's going to have to get a taste of this somehow. That is classic Donald Trump. And that's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get his vig, if you will, for giving back the money. It is classic Donald Trump. It's a mafia type thing, and I'd be surprised if the Republicans don't realize what the fuck he's trying to do, and maybe want to try to put a stop to it.
Well, like I said, the way I understand it is he can only withhold the aid money, any money specifically approved by Congress for 45 days, and then the Treasury must spend it. But 45 days when you're dealing with foreign aid is a long time. You can cause a lot of chaos, and some of these places are already looking for other places where they can get aid donations and things from. All he's doing without realizing it is hurting us on the world stage. He thinks he's being tough and he's making us look strong and he's doing this and he's doing that. No, we're world leaders because of our aid. You know, we were giving way more money than a lot of the countries in aid money. And that gave us a little bit of power when it came to directing how things went in the world.
Right.
Because everybody was like, well, if something bad happens to me, I might end up needing some of that aid money from the United States too. So we'll at least hear them out, kind of thing. Doing it Donald Trump's way, it's just leading to us falling in status, and somebody else like Russia, well, they don't have any money, but China or somebody else stepping up and becoming that new power.
Well, and I think we're at risk of that too. Everything Donald Trump is doing is weakening this country, weakening our standing in this international theater. Um, we heard the story when he was talking at the economic summit in Davos. He was on via Zoom or whatever, and the stuff he was saying had no bearing on what they were talking about. And the people from England, the English contingent, were flat out laughing at him. I think people are laughing at him all around the world. There was a time when he first became president, the first time, I think people feared him because they didn't know what to expect. I think this time around, people realize that he is very incompetent and he says a lot of things, but rarely is he able to ever follow through with it. So at this stage, Donald Trump is little more than a joke, internationally speaking.
Yeah, I think you're right there. They're laughing at him. They know, and they're already looking for ways to negotiate around us. Whether it's in trade, whether it's in foreign aid, these countries, they're not going to be turning to us when it's time. And he doesn't know fuck all about fuck all. He don't know shit about shit. Because he pulled us out of the World Health Organization. Well, did you hear at
Right.
his rally in Vegas? He says, "Well, maybe we'll go back into that. Maybe we'll do it." Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he says, "Well, maybe we'll go back into the World Health Organization if they give us a better deal than what they're giving Canada, or not Canada, China, because China's got way more people." Well, first he says because China's got like 1.4 billion people or something, whatever number he said. I don't even know if he said the right number. They says, and well, we have, well, who the hell knows what our population is? Who the hell knows what we've got? So we didn't even know our own population. Um, but he said, we'll go back into the World Health Organization if they give us a better deal. Because China pays $39 million, we pay 500 a year. Well, I did a little looking, and it took me all of 5 minutes to come to this answer. So Donald Trump could have found it probably in less time if he would have asked the right person.
Right.
Um, the bulk of what we give is voluntary that we have agreed through Congress to spend in the World Health Organization, again, because it makes us a global leader. It gives us a little bit of power on the world stage for being a leader in health. It's
Right.
not that It's not that we owe 500 million because the World Health Organization said so. No, we agreed to it. We volunteered that money, but he don't know shit about shit.
No, he doesn't. And that's what Donald Trump is. Everything is about a score or about money or about ratings. And the real basis for any of these things happening don't matter to him. He thinks he looks good by going into NATO or going into the World Health Organization and cutting a better deal so he can go, oh, I saved us $100 million. He thinks that's a score for most people. Most people can't comprehend that kind of money. It's like when he was talking about the $500 billion investment by these big AI groups putting up data centers all over the country. How do you think that's going to go now? I have a feeling that deal may be off the fucking table with this new Chinese app that's come in that's comparable and cheaper. Everything Donald Trump does gets fucked up one way or another. That's why I don't understand why people sidle up with him and get him involved in things. It's a fucking it's the death knell of anything you want to try by allowing Donald Trump to be involved.
Well, in part, he speaks at about a third to sixth grade level at
Yep.
best. That's part of why a lot of the Trumplafucks uh, they latch onto it. And for years, going back as long as I can remember, and probably longer, because he's almost 80 years old.
Yeah.
He has been good at selling the image of Donald Trump. Well, I got started with just a small loan from my father, just a little bit of money, and I've turned it into a big multi-billion-dollar business empire. He's been good at selling the allure, the image of I
The
was just an
illusion.
average person, an illusion of I was an average person and I made it big. And a lot of the Trumplafucks, like whenever we talk about raising the tax rate on the wealthy people, they always say, "Well, I'm going to be one of them someday, so you can't do that because I wouldn't want to pay that kind of taxes." They
Right.
think that they can follow that small amount of money to billions of dollars path that Donald Trump did. Somehow they're going to luck into the same type of thing, not realizing that his small loan was a couple of $1 million in the 60s. I think it was. Yeah, it was a bit in the 60s, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, a couple of million in the 60s was probably closer to several hundred million now. That's not a small loan. That's a good size investment.
Well, and it's pretty well known that it's one thing about getting that first investment, but every time Donald Trump did something, he failed. And every time he failed, he had to get bailed out. And the real number from his father over the bailouts and all this stuff, it runs to the tune of $400 million, almost a $500 million. And I got to tell you, I'm not the smartest man in the world. But if my dad gave me $400 million for 40 or 50 years ago, I'd be a rich motherfucker too. And I wouldn't even do anything. I just put it in a bank at 5% and I'd still be rich. But Donald Trump has to fuck with it. I mean, he says, my dad gave me a couple $1 million. Here's one instance where I know he gave him more money. There was a time when he was building the casino and he was failing with the casino and he needed a loan from his dad, and his dad couldn't get him a loan. They were trying to figure out how to do it without paying taxes and all that stuff. So what dad did is sent somebody down to the casino, buy $5 million worth of chips and never cash them in. That's how Donald Trump got $5 million from his dad without any taxes. And that's far and away more than the couple of million he claims he got from his daddy.
Yeah, and he does stuff like that all the time. And one of the only reasons he was failing at a casino was because, like most things, Donald Trump didn't listen to the experts and thought he knew more. They told him, well, you can only build your casino to be this big.
Right.
That's about how big the market can handle, and you'd still make a good profit. But he had to be the biggest, he had to be the best, and he ignored them, built what he wanted, and then he fails
He
and
failed
it goes
like he
belly
always
up.
fails. If you look at what Donald Trump's done in the week since he's been in office, a little over a week since he's been in office, there has been nothing positive done. There is nothing, no kind of policy, no kind of bill that's going to help all the problems that he claimed there was. Everything's been pretty negative. And I'm just seeing this other story. Apparently, Trump's Justice Department says it just fired employees involved in prosecutions of him.
Yep.
This is all vindictiveness. This has nothing to do with progress. This has nothing to do with running this country. He's been on a week and a half revenge tour. And the question is, when does that stop and when do they get down to fucking governing? I don't think they ever will.
The revenge tour won't stop until he has gotten after everybody he thinks has wronged him and he feels 100% vindicated, which will be never. Not
Never. That
until
won't ever happen.
not until the convictions are expunged from his record, he gets public apologies from everybody involved, and those people are arrested on some trumped up charges, and they go to jail so he can say, see, they were criminals all along going after me. That's what it's going to take. As far as getting
Yeah.
down to actual governing, he's got no intention of governing. I mean, hell, didn't he say he was going to be too busy to go golfing again this time? And yet he was out on the golf course today.
Yeah. He was on the golf course today. This motherfucker gets up at 11 and because he's up True Social posting all fucking night in a crazed way. Then he gets up at 11, he goes golf. When does this is what I've said. This is what you've said too. People are worried about all these things that Donald Trump is going to do. He doesn't want to do anything. He wants to talk and scare people and get people upset, but he never accomplishes anything. He didn't in his first term. He's not going to in this term either. His incompetence is at such a level that the Republican Party is going to be frozen for the most part, save for those times that the Democrats decide to help them out because they're okay with whatever bill they're trying to fucking pass.
Yeah, the Democrats are going to come through and bail him out on a couple things. Probably going to keep the government open. Probably going to come up with something to pass the debt ceiling. But usually, but they've got the upper hand here. They're
Yeah.
going to get their way on this stuff. Now, whether that means that, hey, the only way we help you out of this debt ceiling thing is if we repeal the TikTok ban, or whether it's, we'll sign a funding bill, but no spending cuts.
Right.
And then Donald Trump will try to veto it, and then they'll just pass it around his veto. Because I guarantee you, more Republicans in Congress want to keep the government open than deal with a shutdown under their watch, where they have complete control again.
Right.
It's just, it is what it, like. They're not going to get much done. It's going to take the Democrats in Congress leading the way again up until the midterms, and then the midterms, with any luck. I think Republicans will fuck themselves enough that Democrats are going to retake at least the House, if not the House and the Senate.
Right.
And then all bets are off at that point.
All bets are off, but nothing will get done because Donald Trump
Yep.
won't sign anything unless there's a super majority and they can override a veto. Donald Trump is putting out all kinds of executive orders. There's one I'm just seeing that came across just a moment ago. Trump signs executive orders to reshape the military, including banning transgender troops. Now, this isn't a surprise. We knew this was coming, but I think people are under the idea that when Donald Trump makes an executive order, it's a done deal and it's going to absolutely happen that way. And I've heard other people describe executive orders as kind of a wish list. Maybe you can explain why just because he says he's going to do this doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen.
Okay. Well, there are at the federal level, there are three kinds of law in this country. There's constitutional law, which is anything in the Constitution itself.
Right.
There's a law that is passed by Congress, and then there's an executive order. It's the weakest form of law, and you can't override the other two with an executive order. But it's a wish list. He can say, okay, I'm telling you, I want you to do this, but they're also the easiest to challenge in court, especially if they're overriding and changing how laws work, or if they're going against the Constitution. Um, and they usually have a time frame. They'll say, well, as of this date, blah, blah, blah. Well, then they go in, they file like in this case, he's going to just dismiss members of the military that are transgender, that have done nothing wrong, have no reason to be court-martialed, have no reason to get a discharge. Somebody is going to sue over this. It's going to go to court. Court's going to say, they may say yes, they may say no, depending on where it's filed. And it's going to go through appeal after appeal, and it'll eventually make its way to the Supreme Court. So it's going to take a while for some of these to actually become a thing. Just
Yeah.
because he signs it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just like, and I couldn't find the article again after I read it. He is going to, or has tried to sign an executive order reversing Joe Biden's executive order on offshore drilling. Joe Biden used a 1950s law about offshore drilling, protecting a whole
Right.
bunch of area from new drilling permits. And Donald Trump just signed an executive order that says, yeah, reverse that. Well, it's already been tried through the courts once. Courts have said the law doesn't say presidents can reverse that particular part of this, that, once it's declared protected, it's protected. So he can try it, but the courts are going to get involved. They're going to say no. They have said no already. His
Right.
birthright citizenship executive order. One of the courts has already said, yeah, we're putting a pause on that. That can't go into effect till we hear this case. And it's blatantly, what did he say?
He said it
I
was
can't remember.
mind-boggling and blatantly unconstitutional, and pretty much admonished Donald Trump and his lawyers,
Yeah,
basically saying, "Why would you even bring this to me?" So,
right.
so, and that's a perfect illustration of what we're talking about. He says, I'm going to change birthright citizenship, which means he has to overturn the 14th Amendment. People are going, oh my, what are we going to do now? Well, nothing, because it's not going to happen. He goes to court. They say, fuck yourself. He'll go to another court. They'll say, fuck yourself, because this is blatantly unconstitutional. There is no court, even the Supreme Court, that's going to overturn an amendment. It's just not going to happen.
Well, the problem is if they overturn this amendment, it wouldn't be overturning the amendment, they would change how it's interpreted. And it's been interpreted since like 1898 that the 14th Amendment, the very first lines that say any person born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction, means that anybody who isn't born to parents that are diplomats or foreign soldiers are, citizens. They have
Yeah.
citizenship, period. I don't see the Supreme, like, they have touched a lot of things. Overruling that would throw everything into chaos. I don't see them doing that, because then you have to go back. Okay, well, then you have to track your lineage back how far before you get your citizenship. You go back to before the law was written. Like, how far back do you have to trace your citizenship if they overturn it and toss it away? It's just not going to happen. But he thinks they're going to side with him. Now, on the off chance they do, he's effectively saying that undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants, if you will, the ones that are here illegally, are not subject to a U.S. jurisdiction, which means they can't be detained and deported.
Right.
They have immunity. The whole thing is dumb. And speaking of immunity, I want to bring this up too. I've been seeing this, and we have to talk about it a lot because people get it wrong. The Supreme Court's immunity decision does not mean the courts can't overturn his executive orders. They can't. That doesn't mean that just because he signs a law that is blatantly unconstitutional, that it gets to go into effect or whatever. All it says is that he can't face criminal charges for signing the executive order, for coming up with the idea, for supporting the idea. That's all it is. The action of writing the executive order and signing it, he can't be charged for. But the action itself, the executive order, can still be tossed out. They're not the same thing. The immunity decision does not apply.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I think I heard Glenn Kirshner talking about this. I didn't know this, but the immunity clause that Donald Trump has, or any president has, is limited too. It's limited to things that you do uh, as an official act as a president. But there's one thing that Donald Trump we know is going to do, is currently doing, that he doesn't have immunity for, and that's taking bribes or taking money under the table. His immunity doesn't apply to that sort of thing. And when he's finally out of office, I'll guarantee you there's going to be some cases about him accepting money under the table or bribes or whatever you want to call it.
I'd love to see it, but it's going to depend on one, how he leaves office. Does he leave at the end of his term? Does he resign? Does he get 25th Amendmented because he's too old? Because he's facing mental decline? Or
Yeah.
do they toss him out with impeachment? Depending on how he leaves, determines whether or not he faces any sort of criminal investigation. But beyond that, it depends who we pick as Attorney General, because we just went through 4 years of that. We picked
Yeah.
Merrick Garland, thought he'd be doing great. He sat on his hands for 2 years. We don't
Yeah.
need an
True.
attorney general like that. Now, whoever the Democrats run, if they pick Jack Smith as attorney general, Jack Smith will have cases brought up probably within a month against Donald Trump, assuming Democrats win in 28. And, that's what we need. We need somebody who's going to do something as attorney general right off the bat, not somebody to say, well, it's political. He's old. He's starting to face dementia. We'll let him be. No, we don't need that.
What do you think about Donald Trump's safety? I mean, it's one thing if you piss off of the Democratic Party. The Democrats are pretty reasonable thinking people. But when you start pissing off the Republican Party, a lot less reasonable, or when you start pissing off other countries, his his risk has got to get really high. I mean, there have been already two assassination attempts with Donald Trump. And frankly, I hope there's never another assassination attempt, because it would largely make Donald Trump a martyr. I don't want to see that. I want to see him embarrassed all the way through anything that might happen to him. But Jesus, I would think the risk is pretty high at this point.
I would definitely agree, especially considering the type of company he keeps. When he's next to Elon Musk and doing the things Elon's doing already, I could see somebody getting involved, one of the foreign countries, in attempting something. If they get scared enough, I wouldn't put it past some foreign countries to attempt something.
Well, we
And
know
now I
Iran
don't want
is
to see,
already after him. We
yeah,
know
I don't
Iran
want to
is
see
already
anything.
after him.
Yeah, and I don't want to see Iran or anybody else do anything to him. Because I think the disruption to this country would be horrible, even from having to deal with all of it. Like you said, don't want him to be a martyr. And I want him embarrassed. You know,
Yeah.
I want him to go through all of it. But when the rhetoric gets dangerous enough, it wouldn't surprise me if they try something. I mean, speaking of Elon, did you hear one of the creators I follow on TikTok? I don't remember who. Um, did a thing showing apparently a company, or not a company, some group in Germany used a projector and put the image of Elon from the rally on inauguration day when he was doing the very obvious 1930s Germany salute
Right.
up on the wall of Tesla in Germany. Did you hear the
Right.
German authorities are actually investigating the whole thing, because the people who put it on the building, as well as Elon, could be in some major trouble in Germany because that is illegal. And they're saying, yeah, that is what it looks like. It's very obvious. Um, and they're not playing games with it. They're saying it is what it was.
Jerry Elon's getting a little mad too, because people are referring to Teslas as swastikars.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, yeah, they're doing that. But
That's a good one.
it is a good one. Have you seen those videos of Elon standing at the inauguration or whatever, and he's making these weird movements and he's looking up in the air. I mean, it's just weird looking. And people
Yeah.
will say, "Don't pick on him because he's autistic." That's not an autistic trait. That's a dude taking ketamine because we know he takes ketamine. This guy's got some drug problems as well. I mean, he's a narcissist. He believes he can do anything he possibly wants to. We could see, we could see uh, Elon Musk flopping on the ground like a fish, frothing from his mouth at some point if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Oh yeah, that'd be funny. Um, but actually, the videos I've been seeing more are all of the Trump supporters trying to imitate Elon, but they're purposely doing it wrong. They're not doing it with the same gusto. They're changing the hand movements, trying to make it seem okay. Well, see, I did it too. I did it too. Now, tell me what's wrong with that. No, you didn't do the same motions. You didn't do it with the same, you didn't do it with the same stiff arm motions. And the ones that have, a lot of them are getting fired. So
Well,
I
yeah,
think that's hilarious.
there was one woman who is on a board of commissioners someplace. I'm not sure where she is. And
Pennsylvania.
she was, yeah, Pennsylvania. She was all proud of herself. And she was trying to make a point. She didn't mention Elon, but she said, well, my friend is having this problem. And she touched her chest and did the hand gesture um, uh, and says, I give you my heart. Okay. Well, that's not what Elon said. That's what they're trying to say he said, but that's not what he was talking about at the time. But she does it on video and it's all over TikTok and Tizzy Int and other people got a hold of it. This dumb bitch was forced to resign. And I'm sure she thinks she's pretty smart now.
Yeah. Well, there was another gal I saw. Yeah, that one I saw she had to resign after saying she wasn't going anywhere. Like less than 2 days later, you know, she was resigned. There was another gal who was a hairdresser, did it in her salon, the salon where she worked,
Yeah.
with their logo, very like logo and very distinct furnishings, all visible. Does it? And I think by the end of the day, it got back to him and she was let go. And the
Yeah.
other ones that are doing it are either changing the gesture, not going palm down, or having their hands spread wide open like they're waving,
Right.
or they're doing it off screen so the whole image isn't actually captured. Because they know what it is. They're just trying to excuse it. But they're only excusing it because he's associated with Trump. If Donald Trump kicked him to the curb for doing it tomorrow, they would turn on a dime and start bashing Elon for it.
And that thing is
100% guarantee it.
And that thing is going to happen. There's already a crack in the bromance between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Elon Musk wanted to have an office as close to Donald Trump as he could possibly get in the White House, not unlike a cult leader who wants to have control over his cultist. Um, but Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, said, "Yeah, no, you're going to get an office across the street at the Eisenhower Building. You're not going to be here next to Donald Trump. There's some things going on there, and we all predicted that Donald Trump and Elon Musk little bromance wouldn't last very long because you got two narcissists together, and that just doesn't work."
Well, and I think that's probably in part because they're trying to, I'm guessing Susie Wiles is trying to insulate Donald Trump a little bit from the fallout of Elon Musk. They're probably looking at it going, yeah, this thing is going to blow up. We know what we saw. We need these two as far away from each other as possible so we can insulate him a little bit for when the shit hits the fan. And it's starting to hit the fan already. Um, but they will eventually break apart. They're not going to survive. I would be surprised if this time next year Musk is involved in the uh, goings on in the White House.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Chief of Staff Susie Wiles ends up doing too, because she is a stupid Trump humper, but she kind of knows the job and she's kind of a stickler, and she's going to want to try to protect Donald Trump by doing the right things as opposed to what Donald Trump wants to do. And eventually, Donald Trump will get tired of doing the right things and he'll want to do exactly what he wants to do. So that may put a wedge between Susie Wiles because he had a few chief of staffs during his term too.
Well, yeah. But the thing is going to be, it's all about how can she, how does she talk to him? It's all about how you phrase things with Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Well, if we do it
exactly.
this way, you're going to look like a genius, Donnie. If you do it, this other way, people are going to, even though you're still a genius, people are going to take it the wrong way. If you phrase it the
Yeah.
right way, you can get him to do anything. So I
Well,
think
yeah, he's easily manipulated.
if she's smart enough about how she talks to him, I think she'll be fine. But it's all of his positions. He goes through more people than uh, most presidents as far as, you know, uh, all of his cabinet positions and stuff. That is, however, the one thing I kind of wish Joe Biden would have done a little bit more of. Joe Biden didn't seem to fire anybody.
No, no, he didn't. And to be honest with you, I've said before, I don't fault him for hiring Merrick Garland because who knew? But I do fault Joe Biden for not firing him after the first year of doing nothing. He should have been fired after that first year. And even that extra year would have helped us get this thing done with Donald Trump, and he wouldn't be the candidate and he wouldn't be the president. So I think Merrick Garland obviously took a shit, but I think to a certain extent Joe Biden shit the bed too.
Yeah, by not removing Merrick Garland, by being too hands off a little bit
Yeah.
and saying, "Well, you guys deal with it with your thing. I'll be over here. Because we're supposed to be separate. Sure, I'll put you in the position, but then I'm hands off." Well, when you're dealing with a threat as bad as Donald Trump, you know, being hands off is one thing, but at least find out if something is going on. And if you find out your guy's not doing anything, like if he can says, I'm not telling you to investigate, but specifically, but are you even looking into any of all this? And the guy's like, well, no. What the fuck?
Well, exactly. It's one thing to be hands off, and that is the right thing to do for a president. We have independent uh, branches of government, and Joe Biden shouldn't be manipulating the Department of Justice in as much as Donald Trump is doing exactly that. But Merrick Garland does serve at the president's pleasure. And if that guy isn't doing the job, Joe Biden does have the right to fire him and put somebody else in there. And he didn't. And that's been disastrous for this country. The fact that Donald Trump didn't get through his his trials and get convicted and get put in jail or whatever the fuck happens to him, that is a huge mistake by the Democratic Party and the Biden administration. Uh, that's devastating to this country. And as much as I like Joe Biden, I can't forgive him for that.
Yeah, that is one of the two big mistakes I think Joe Biden made. And the other, it's a mixed mistake, I guess, the way I think about it. It's either, I don't know which part of it to say is the mistake. Either he made the mistake saying he should have ran, that he was going to run after the midterms and said he was in, or he
Yeah.
made the mistake dropping out. One of those two was the mistake. I just don't know which one it was.
Well, it's real easy to look in hindsight. No, hindsight is 2020. Given his age, I think he should have stuck to his guns and said, "Okay, I'm only going to be here one term. You guys need to start getting a legitimate candidate set up from the moment I take office, so that they're ready by the time to the election." Now, I would have loved to have kept Joe Biden as president of the United States, but the fact of the matter is, he's over 80 years old and he's missing a step here and there. He's still smart. He's got all his cognitive skills, but the way he presents himself gives the impression that he's losing a step. And in this world, it only perception is all that matters. Facts and truth apparently don't matter. So he should have stuck to his guns, and they should have come up with a reasonable candidate, whether it be Kamala Harris or somebody else. Now, that said, I think the Democrats should take a lesson. They lost the election. They should right now be looking for somebody to run for president in 2028 and start showcasing them, putting them on the platform, and letting people get to know that person. And I haven't seen much out of the Democrats with that regard at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. They need to get somebody going now. But the other thing where Joe Biden failed, maybe, and or maybe it's not so much a failure as this is just a reality we need to accept as to how people are now. Um, I'm seeing a lot of Trumplafucks talk about how much Donald Trump is getting done in his first week, in his first few days,
Got nothing done.
because he's gotten nothing of substance done. He's done a lot of things. He signed a lot of executive orders that are going to get tossed out. Nothing about lowering anything or doing anything. But because he has the appearance of being busy and signing executive orders and doing this and doing that, the Trumplafucks believe that he's doing a lot. If Joe Biden would have done more press events when he signed executive orders and talked about the things he was doing more and just been more vocal about what he was doing and not go by the Democratic playbook of we'll let our achievements speak for themselves, I think the narrative would have been much different. Donald Trump is good at making people believe he's doing something when he's doing nothing.
The interesting thing about Joe Biden, the things that we perceive as him doing wrong wouldn't have been wrong if this were the 90s or the early 2000s. Joe Biden is from a different era. He's an old school guy. He thought he could play like he has all 50 years that he was in Washington, D.C. Problem is we're playing in a different world, a different game, different rules, and he was playing in that game. That's where the failure was for Joe Biden, and it wasn't really a failure for Joe Biden. He's just an older guy from a bygone era, and the Democrats should be able to see that and realize we've got a war now, and we've got to fight the war on the same basis that the Republicans are. And hopefully they will see that, and hopefully that's what we'll get with the next candidates, not only for president but for the Senate, for the House, and all of that.
Well, but that's half the problem, though, is a lot of the people he was leading on to advise him were from that same era.
Right.
Um,
Pelosi, Schumer.
right. And they want to run by that. And some of what we're thinking about Joe Biden is even failing. It's just because you're dealing with a different era now. Like you said, we're dealing with modern times. And it's not even so much that politics in some cases have changed. It's society in a way. You know, we got TikTok now, right? Where we're watching 3-minute clips and we're getting instantaneous news as it happens. Um, so if you can control a narrative and be out there and be seen, that
Right.
makes a big difference. It's not like it
Yeah.
was in the 90s, early 2000s, where you got even the 2000s, it was still, you had your nightly news, you had your newspaper, the internet was starting to be a thing, but it wasn't still huge yet. Now,
No.
headlines are happening instantaneously, and we're getting news from all over. It's a different era. We need to adapt to it, but we need to adapt all over the place, not just at the top of the ticket. We need to get rid of the old people. They've served their time. Let's get young people in, um, and push for youth. And it's almost to
Right.
the point where even people my age, for some things, aren't the voices we need.
Right. That's absolutely it. Well, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? They always ask about you and Will and everybody else. Tell people where they can find you because they should definitely seek you out.
Okay. You can find me on TikTok, Clapper, Blue Sky, and YouTube. I am Analytical Iowan on all of them. If you find me on any of them, I have a link tree in my bio on all of them that will get you to all of the other locations where I'm at. Um, and I will be probably be in the comment section of this live over on YouTube, so you can find me that way. Um, and if you find my link tree, I do have a few affiliated creators. At the bottom of my link tree, there's a link that says affiliated creators, and it will get you to people like TJ and Will. And I've got, they already know how to find you if they found this podcast, but I even got a link
Right.
uh, to your link tree. That way, it just helps to spread the word to get everybody to where everybody else is. So that's where you can find me. If TikTok does go away, I'm going to still keep doing what I do with Clapper, Blue Sky, and YouTube. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to keep talking. We got to keep the gang together, as it were. And we'll do that regardless of how things turn out with TikTok. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.